Morning, everybody, or afternoon, everybody. It is still Friday, February 21, and you are in Housing and General, Housing and General Committee. We are now taking testimony concerning housing funding in connection with the committee bill that we are working on. And our first testimony knows us well. And in fact, there are imprints probably in the seat. Maura, want to introduce yourself and take it away?
Yes. Hi, I'm Maura Collins. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Housing Finance Agency. Thank you for having me back. I brought some friends with me today, so you don't have to listen to me for the next hour. What I'm hoping to do is to remind you of our two middle income programs, and I'll have a couple slides when I come back. But I am here to talk about two programs that the legislature and this committee have supported in the past, which are a part of the governor's budget ask, and I'm hoping are going to be in your committee bill, which I believe they are in the draft. The governor put us in for $15 million for two different programs, so 30 million total. One is a middle income homeownership development program where we give loans to developers of affordable starter homes. These are very modest homes. We were given $24 million previously and used that to fund 125 homes, average size 1,300 square feet. I'll be able to talk to you about how we structured that assistance to developers who right now in 20 different communities are building these homes. And then a year later, we got $10 million to do a middle income rental program where, again, we have a subsidized loan that goes to a developer to build middle income rental housing. And I'll have numbers about what middle income is and how that's structured. But to really remind the committee, for those who weren't on this committee and seen these programs before, I asked for Laura Lee Tester, who's the director of the Northeast Kingdom Chamber of Commerce, to speak about the needs of employers, because that's where these programs were born. It was the Vermont Chamber and it was employers who said, we need government subsidized affordable housing because that's where the greatest need always will be. But we also need a solution for people who don't qualify for the government programs, but still need some kind of public support because they need housing too. And so Laura Lee can talk about what's happening in the kingdom with employers and their needs. And then Peter Kahn, who maybe some of you apparently have met before, is a builder based in Virgins, but has done work in several communities, and to talk about his pre-pandemic and post-pandemic experience and why programs like this are so critical on the ground. And then I do have a couple slides really quick to run through some details of the programs, but honestly, you all see me all the time. So I'd rather you spend your time with them getting the information. I'm happy to
Don't go yet.
Okay.
One item that is in our, if it's not in our bill, it will be in the next draft without predicting what will eventually happen, is the offsite modular construction position and maybe attendant consultant.
Yeah,
Walk around.
it's more than one position, but yes.
We need you. We have no testimony to support it other than your off the cuff remark at the joint hearing that you could do it all. Thank you very much, but you need someone to coordinate it.
Yep.
So we need a little from you.
Yes, and we do have some language that's been shared about what this, that would be a study committee and the funding would support that study. We'd come back. I can make sure you have that language.
I'm not,
It's-
it's, conceivable that it
Yep.
fell down the page.
Absolutely.
It's rather rapidly.
I will put it to the top of the page. It really is the testimony you heard in the joint hearing, which is taking all the recommendations of next steps that look at exploring, study, and look into.
Right.
And says that's what we'll do. We do a progress report due next January. I can't promise that we would have thought through and developed an entire bulk purchase program by January. But a progress report on how far we got, who's going to play what roles, and what the need and market is, we can definitely do by then.
One of the things that I would like you to think about we've been trying to move all the studies that we're asking for up to November.
Mhm.
The reason being that means we could actually develop legislation and get it into Ledge Council by December 1.
Mhm.
Think about that.
I can do that. The progress report will just be 2 fewer months of progress, but
Okay.
there's no reason why not.
Let's call for an interim report
Yeah.
by November 1st and then a final report January 15th or whatever, okay?
Just realize that all of this, like the funding, just so you know, something like this, we do need to hire consultants and engage people. So if the money were freed up July 1, we have to have a contract with the state. In my experience, that takes till September. So I just want you to know the realities I work in. Now I can front that and that's fine. The state's usually good to pay their bills, but I want you to know, like, that's why things take till January in situations like this, but we can get going.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No,
I got one thing.
Go ahead, Joe. And
The,
anybody else on the committee?
I'm
just off the
just
top of your head, just feel free to email it to me. What were the 250 for implementing the 2005 opportunities to utilize offsite construction to
Yeah.
meet Vermont's housing, workforce and climate goals?
yeah.
What are you implementing with that?
And climate goals. I didn't know that was in the language. That threw me. What are we implementing?
Yeah, it says 250,000.
That's in our house.
Yeah.
House committee.
Yeah, let me look at that language, because
We can share
I
it.
remember the conversation. I don't remember the.
yeah, that was
And
the,
it's
this is the
just-
offset, the 250,000 is just the offsite report that I'm talking about.
Oh, no, I'll tell you what page are you on?
27.
28.
Well, the first one, the second. The draft 1.1,
is.
I'm looking at 1.1 and it's on page
2.1,
1, where is it?
28. Sum of 250 to Department of Housing, usually rather granted to VHFA to implement the recommendations of the 25, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Oh, no, that's it.
so that's
it?
yeah, that's the same thing that we're talking about.
So you-
I was surprised that we put climate goals in there.
Offsite construction.
I'm also forwarding you the language.
Okay, great. All right, so we're set.
You got it?
There are bullet points. What we had drafted was bullet points that said the study will look at these 6 things. And so,
Let me just share it. 6 things: identify the state's policy objectives and priorities, explore opportunities for using bulk purchases of single and multifamily homes produced through offsite construction.
Okay, I remember it. Just the wording of it is.
Yeah, okay.
You want to give us a slow thing?
Fill me up there.
Implement the recommendations of a paper by writing another
So
paper.
we're gonna expand that.
I'm just
Understand
gonna-
the camera, okay,
Oh, yeah.
okay. Great.
The good news is we're all talking about the same thing though.
Yay.
That we want to take
Got that?
the recommendations from the report and study them further because they do need further development.
Okay, great. I'll tell you what, why don't we have the committee introduce themselves to you?
Oh, thank you. Ashley Bartley, Fairfax, Georgia. I'm so sorry.
It's
a long day, I'm sure.
Essex Town, City of Essex Junction.
Joe Parsons, Newberry, Thompson and Groton.
Debbie Dolgan, St. Johnsbury, Concord, and Kirby. Gail Pezzo, Chittenden, 20, Colchester.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rose and I represent Windsor One, which is Heartland, West Windsor and Windsor.
And I'm Mark Mahaly, and I represent Calais and Plainfield and Marshfield.
Great. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Laura Lee Fester. I live in Linenville, and I represent the Northeast Kingdom Chamber of Commerce. I'm the executive director. I started at the end of April in this past year, so I haven't been there that long, but it's been a really great opportunity of getting to know the businesses in the entire, throughout the region and asking a lot of questions, as one does when you start a new job. I have asked, what is your biggest challenge to large and small businesses? I mean, we have mom and pop businesses, single enterprise, up to Weidman, which is a huge business that's, about to do a $42 million expansion, right? So I have a wide range of people, and across the board, the answer is a workforce. Workforce is the biggest challenge. the irony of so much of our investment in some ways, you know, as I've been in the Chamber of Commerce, it's money is there available to try to bring people to the state, which we're kind of successful in doing, but when they get there, they don't have a place to live. Anecdotally, the hospital in the last 3 years has had dozens, like literally dozens of signed agreements for people to come to the hospital to work. And that's a range. It's you know, specialists to support staff. I mean, there's a wide range of people who are looking for opportunities to work here. And they come, they have an interview, they're excited to be here, and then they can't find a house. And so they say, I can't do it. And they leave. And so, you know, especially in you know, the Northeast Kingdom has one of the oldest populations in the state, and the average age of many of these places like the hospital, it's over 50, you know, and closer to 60 for some of the average ages. And it's a burden, right? And you know that you're going to be losing workforce. And the same is true with our manufacturing sector. I've started a manufacturing consortium. It's made up of a wide range. You've got Linen Furniture, Precision Composites, Mobile Medical, Vermont Aerospace, Weidman. Again, same question. What's your biggest challenge? And it's workforce. And they could hire 200 people today if people could find a place to live. And that would bring millions of dollars. Like Precision Composites said, they could grow their business by $2 million next week if they had the people working for them. And when you think about those struggles in our region, right, we need that broader tax base, and we're not able to bring it in because of this issue. Same thing is true in our schools. Every school in the Northeast Kingdom, probably in Vermont, is looking for educators, qualified educators. At Linen Institute, I'm also the chair of the board there. They have hired some people, hired an athletic director last year. He lives in a dorm, and it's not a great dorm. And it's hard. It's hard to create a life when you're living in a dormitory. You can only imagine, right? Think of the last dorm you lived in, it probably looks like that.
Half of us live in dormitories.
Yes. Oh, well, while you're here, but yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely.
So, you know, but it's not where you'd want to really create a home.
Homeless,
Or
yeah.
have a family, you know, bring a family up. And I think
Mhm.
that's another issue that, you know, I have described it as the chicken or the egg problem. We need more people. That's just how it is. And so, you know, we've got, you know, our schools are declining population. You know, you guys all know it, you know the story, and it's a challenge. I think rural Vermont, it impacts us a little bit differently. You know, the legislature has put an enormous amount of support towards career and technical education programs, which I'm so grateful for. And it's been a phenomenal success in certain regions. But one of our challenges in the Northeast Kingdom is between even both Linen Institute and St. Johnsbury Academy that have a shared CTE program for building trades. We currently don't have enough students in the pipeline in order for that program to continue. So it's being hibernated. And, you know, so that's something that could ease a problem, but we're not able to because we literally don't have enough people, and we're starting to be on a real downward spiral, which is scary. It's scary for me, this is home, right? This is where I want my kids to come back to. And I think, you know, one other issue, and which I think it's a housing issue, but it also highlights the need that we need more people who are working today, is the second home situation with COVID, with the pandemic in particular. There were so many people who were kind of refugees from the cities, and the Northeast Kingdom is a spectacularly beautiful spot. It's, you know, you've got lots of space, you've got lots of land, you've got the recreation, it's beautiful. And a lot of people bought second homes, which you can't fault them for, right? Like, you know, who am I to say you don't get to buy that? And it helped the people who are selling. But in Burke alone, there are 200 Airbnbs. There are people there. And then actually I was chatting with a woman yesterday who lives in Kirby, and the neighboring house, the people who own it, they live in Massachusetts, and they literally come up 2 weekends of the year. So it's a beautiful family home that exists, but it's not able to be used by people who need to fill our workforce. So it's all happening at once, and I think you all are aware of it. But I think the density issue in rural Vermont is problematic, and it's hard to bring development into our region. So that's what rural Vermont's looking like right now, but our businesses are suffering and could grow so much more if we could actually bring more people to the region.
Not you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know if you have any questions for me or if you want me to expand on anything.
Please.
So kind of related to something we were just discussing prior was there's a suggestion on the table for us to consider to help an organization called Home Share Vermont to expand services all over the Northeast Kingdom. Does that, have you heard of? I'm imagining that they're proposing to do that because there's been some kind of demand for it locally. So can you speak to that so that we can?
I am not that familiar with it, to be honest, and I'm assuming that it's having multiple families within a home, or is
It's basically
that?
like if you're a home provider that for whatever reason wants to get sort of a person to come in and live in your home,
Mhm.
it helps to match up the person who's seeking the housing
okay.
with the person who.
Because I do know of some incidences where, there is somebody who owns a house and is renting a space to another group that they're not connected. So I know that's existing, but I didn't know of a program behind it.
Oh.
So I'll have to read more about it. I'm so sorry, I can't.
Does it sound like something that could help solve some of answer
It's
some of the work?
procedures to help them.
It's really anybody
Yeah,
actually,
help
they
them.
expanded it, yeah.
Help them.
Be able to stay at home.
They want to stay in their home,
Mhm.
but somebody else
Looking for
is looking
housing.
for housing, and in return for helping a little bit or whatever the needs
Yeah,
are.
just being a presence in the home.
I think it's a great thing to have on the table as an option. I do know of two groups, two homes that actually do something just like that. I just haven't thought about it in a formal way.
Questions of the committee for Laura Lee?
Is, the vocational building trades program, is it more kids not going in, or enrollment in the sending schools that are, just kids aren't there to send them, or the kids are there and they're just not going?
So there's actually, I think there's a lot of answers to that question. I think it's a lot of things happening at the same time. I think that one is that there's not enough kids in the program. However, it's not quite as simple as that. So I'm speaking from Lennon Institute. We have a absolutely phenomenal welding teacher. Like, he's just outstanding. He has grown that program to something really extraordinary, and they've had to hire a second, person to support. So there are students who have chosen that program because he's such a good teacher. I'm the chair of the board. The school hired somebody in the diversified agriculture program last year because they needed to replace the teacher. And they had one applicant. It was a real struggle to get anyone to apply, and he was fired in November. For all the reasons one might be fired. And I think that one of the challenges is that with the Department of Education has made a lot of requirements for one to become a teacher in a CTE program. You have to be licensed. You have to be a licensed teacher. And what often happens is you're taking somebody from industry where they're actually making a fair amount of money, and then you're asking them to be a teacher where you're not making very much money at all. So it's a really, really vital need, but it's hard to find a person who's qualified and has all of those skills and personality actually as well to make it happen. So I think it's actually it's many issues. There are certain programs that they aren't really interested. There's not enough students in the pipeline, but then you also have a lot of restrictions to be able to be a teacher in that program. And because of the rural nature of our area, it just complicates it a little further. It takes a certain kind of person to want to live there.
Gail?
How are you attracting the kids to come into the program? Is there a marketing strategy? Because they want to be YouTubers.
That's a great question. And that's something that since I've started the chamber, I'm actually beginning to address. It's hard to get it all done at once. But I just started a manufacturing consortium. So obviously not the building trades, but we started with the manufacturers. And so within that group, I brought in, I think there were half a dozen manufacturers, as well as VMEC and Vermont State University CTE director and Department of Labor. And the conversation actually was all about that. How do we get kids to know that these businesses exist, that it's actually kind of a cool thing to be doing? And we're beginning work on exactly that, on marketing and how do you create your story and where does it start and all of those types of things so that there's more collaboration happening. And I think building trades is the place that needs to happen
You
too.
should probably know Rep. Charlton, who's absent now because he's meeting with, I think, VSAC is very interested in this subject. And he and I were just meeting with the chancellor of the Vermont State Colleges. We have in our rough draft bill an appropriation to them to start an HVAC certificate. And they're at the chancellor level, very interested in, they already have a big program for apprenticeships, with about 800 or more people in it. And they're very interested in expanding. So, you've got Lyndon there and it's good they're on your committee.
That's great.
They're at the chancellor level, they're very interested.
That's great.
So,
But I think, that's so wonderful. And I also am just so grateful for the fact that everyone at the table understands the issue at hand. And so it's wonderful to hear the different
yeah, one
thoughts on how to.
of the reasons we care so much about that issue is because we've taken testimony here to the effect that we could solve every problem associated with housing. And if we don't create more people to build,
Yeah.
we're stuck.
Yeah.
But,
And I do just want to say, and I so appreciate the efforts, the workhouse program that VHFA is presenting here, that we need to support those things in rural Vermont as well. And that is an effort to lift and bring people here, because it's you need more of this in order to have more of that, and it keeps going around in circles.
thank you.
Yes.
Any final questions? Yes, Gail.
Well, it's not really a question, it's a comment. Last night, there was a freshman gathering and it was at Association of General Contractors. And the gentleman that owns this, I wanted to sign up to become whatever they do there. And he doesn't get any funding or anything, but they have a program to try to attract kids to come in and learn about being a contractor, and he makes it very exciting.
Oh.
And
Talk to Tom. We're looking at an appropriation.
And that's somebody I'd love to know.
it was a strange name with
It's-
it's Association of General Contractor, one grade street.
Richard Wabi?
Wabi.
WOBBY.
Was he very outgoing?
Yes.
Did he talk like this?
He's just so dynamic. I wanted to sign up to get on that tractor and.
Well, I think that's actually been true. Have you ever done a tour at Beta Technologies? I went there and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to work here. And then I did the same tour at Weidman, which is cool what they're doing, but I didn't have that same feeling, right? I think there is something about.
Tables.
He wasn't pitching it to us, he was just telling us about.
It's his personality.
He's
Yeah,
great. He
personality
is.
goes
He's
a long
great.
way. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Come up.
All right,
I lived in that.
You saw the committee introduce itself.
I did, yes.
So take it away.
Okay,
Your name and.
my name is Peter Kahn. I'm with Sienna Construction. I'm a builder in the Virgins area. And I would like to tell you about a project we have down there called Playbrook. Playbrook's a 50 single-family home neighborhood in Virgins. It's half-acre lots, 60 acres of common land, walking distance to downtown on sidewalks. It started in 2016. And the intent right from the beginning was to build homes essentially for the middle of the market. people with steady income, but moderate income, as is fitting, in that community. So we've been steady with sales for the whole time. So again, from 2016, we do about 3 to 4 houses a year, and it ends up being a nice case study as far as looking at what has happened during the last 8 years for house prices, for construction costs, and the resulting changes in the demographics of the same neighborhood. So our first sale was for $292,000. That was a single family home, nice house, 1,800 square feet. Again, yard, sidewalk, city streets, 2016 non-ancient history, unsubsidized. This is pure market rate on my end as the builder. Again, $292,000. We were pretty steady in that price range for the first couple of years. We were, things generally get slightly more expensive over time. But we stayed in the 300s. We attracted owners in virtually all stages of life. So young families with kids, with babies, high school kids, retirees. We had school teachers, we had a Homeland Security employee, electrical engineers, caterer. These people all live in the neighborhood now, as well as retired police officers, state police officers, and former college administrators. The neighborhood really became quite welcoming and social. It's a sort of a vibe it retains today. If you're ever in the area, it's a really good spirit. Everyone seems to like their house, their yard, they're interactive with the community. However, the pandemic changed things. So I was reading over this morning. The pandemic seems, with everything currently going on, the pandemic seems like a lot further ago than it is. It was 5 years ago, almost to the day. But during the pandemic, so this would be, now we're 2020, 2021, framing materials tripled. Windows, siding, roofing, cabinetry, flooring, sheetrock all went up, essentially doubling in less than 2 years. Labor also got much more expensive. Framing cost doubled. Electrician was more than double. Plumber nearly tripled. Site work was more than double as well. So the result was pricing that was in the 300s went to the 400s and then up into the 500s. And since the pandemic, construction prices, the lumber's come down. We know that, but the cost of construction has still continued to rise pretty steadily. So all other materials other than lumber are continuing to go up. Labor too has gone up. The cost for us to build a house, just the house right now, is more than
Just the house.
just the physical foundation.
Not the lot.
Yeah, you got it.
Septic, not,
Yes.
right,
Yes, exactly what I mean.
yeah, okay.
So that is more expensive. That just the straight cost of that house, physical house, is more than the lot, the infrastructure, city street, the sidewalk, the municipal sewer that we put in, in proportion to that house, and the land cost. So we used to be able to sell a house with not a huge profit, but with a profit that made it worthwhile to do the project. For, I should say, the cost to build a house now is more than that, including the profit, just from a couple of years ago. So where are we now? We're in the 6s and even into the 700s with the prices of these houses.
Say that again?
So we're into the 6s and $700,000.
Okay, I thought you said 16.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Six.
I was like,
Yeah. Sorry. That's a good correction. Hopefully we don't get there.
Wait, did you say
Within
16?
infrastructure or?
Yeah, that's like a move-in price, for single family house. So these are again, really nice house, super energy efficient. Yes.
And just to clarify, you're saying that is just for the house, not the lot and all that.
I got too confusing before. The prices I'm giving now are for the full move-in package, so that would be, that would be, you move in, the lot is, you own the land, and you're on a city street. So,
Yeah.
so that just going back in time, 8 years ago, 300 grand. Now we're high sixes into the sevens.
Is it like a 3-bedroom place?
3-bedroom, 2.5 bathrooms, we meet the energy stretch code, so silver ready roofs. Super well insulated, we have heat pumps and furnace, I mean, so these are nice, very nice houses. But not overly big, so we're ranging size from around 1,850 square feet for 1 story to 2,500 square feet for 2 story. So not mansions, but again, we've always wanted to be in that mid-market. So what happened to our buyer? So once we got into the 500s, we noticed the demographic of the buyer changed. Interest rates also essentially doubled. So, like back in 2000, early 2000s or pre-pandemic, you could for about 10 years, you could get an interest rate in the low 3s, but mid to 3s. That went up to 5 and then 6, and then now it's around 7. So our last sale, we sold a house in 2000, right around 2000 at 525. To a family with kids. Since then, the last 13 sales, one family with kids. The last 10 sales we've had in that neighborhood are, there's only one set of buyers, one household under the age of 45. And so why is that? That's because it's essentially unattainable for having a normal job, buying a house in the 600-700s, putting 20% down and financing the rest at 7%. I mean, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. The other thing that happens is the price of the house goes up, so the assessed value of the house goes up, and the taxes alone are $10,000-$12,000.
So you're saying that people who buy them tend to be older because they can sell an immigrant.
Yes.
They can sell a house in Massachusetts
got it.
and move up here.
Exactly right. So older demographic they've had more time to accumulate wealth, right? The whole lifetime. Often they are selling a house that they own outright, or at least with a small mortgage. And again, exactly right. From a lot of them are from out of state, and sell their house for sort of much more. As expensive this is. Even in other parts of the state, that's not very expensive for what you're getting. Definitely not expensive compared to other New England states. So that has become our standard buyer. We're doing a lot more 1-level houses now than 2-level to meet that need. That's really sort of what's driving our construction right now. So I get pretty regularly people from that first and middle part of the neighborhood coming up to me and expressing how thankful they are they purchased when they did, because there's like no chance they'd be living there now. And in fact, when they do sell, they're replaced by the demographic, the second demographic. So we appreciate all buyers. We would like to have more of a mix. We love the people that are purchasing houses from us right now, but we're no longer serving that mid-market, and which was kind of our goal. That was our goal when we started the project. So, and then when I say we, I work with my son. He's not here; he's on the job site today. But we, in 2022, to try and figure out how to address this middle market. Backing up again, we have subcontractors with kids living in parents' basements and friends' basements, friends' houses. So we sort of turned our efforts to multifamily with the idea that we could get price per unit down. We're building now, instead of single-family houses on their own lot, like one lot, combining the economics of one roof over multiple units. The concept was to get pricing back down so people a more modern income could afford that. We went ahead and purchased land, did all the numbers, and we're gonna start that project conventionally this 2022. Prices, same thing happened. So we thought we're done with the interest rate increases and the cost of construction. And we were not. So that just went up, and the project was basically just a non-starter. It was unfeasible. Fortunately, right around that time, a little later, we purchased the land, and I was like, wow, the people own this land on it for 20 years and nothing ever happened. This is like in town, water, sewer right there, infrastructure exactly where it's now in the neighborhood development area in Virginia, exactly where housing is supposed to be. It's a vacant piece of land for forever. People own it before us for 20 years. It's like, I was like, son, I hope you can do something with this thing someday, because we're not. So, but right around then, we found this grant through the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. It was COVID money. It was sort of the tail end of the COVID money. That paid for 20% of the construction costs, which effectively gets our construction, the amount we need to finance from the bank down 20%. That was enough to tip the scale. So we did the building. It was completed last June, and mid-June we're like, okay, let's put this thing for rent to fill it for August 1st. And in 2 weeks, it was 100% occupied. So we were shooting for August, 10 units. So this was, again, like, let's get a jump on it, see what happens. It was insane. Like, so it's what we hear about it all the time. I'm in the business, but again, I'm building single family houses 3-4 years. So I don't have 10 at a time ready, right? So here they were. We would have super well qualified people back in there. We're now getting 20s and 30s again, like where we used to sell people that demographic houses. They're still here. So solid credit, good jobs. Sign a lease on Friday, move in on Saturday. And I'm like, where the heck were they? I don't know where they were living. But they're there, and there's way more than 10 for sure. It was an appreciation from those buyers to have a place to live was moving.
Did you tell us how
Yes.
much those units were?
What's that?
How much the units?
So 2 are affordable. So 2 are, because of the grant, 2 are affordable. Those are a little over $1,000 a month.
This is rental.
Yeah, these are rentals.
Sorry.
These are rentals. So that is a change, right? So we were doing single family houses, hitting that missing middle market. That is definitely not, that is not possible anymore. It is, I mean, there may be, I'm unaware even of well, Mora does have programs for ownership. So that is a really neat idea. And that would be 100% necessary to even think about building something that someone could afford to live in as and own.
But you were gonna say,
So
1K plus for affordable, and how much?
yeah, and then we're the rest are in the it's workforce are missing middle income. So 80 to 120 AMI rental levels.
I'm sorry if you said
Yes.
this already. For how large is the apartment?
So the apartment building is total 10 units. The units themselves we have 1 bedrooms that are around 600 square feet.
And those are
then,
the $1,000 ones? Or
yeah,
it's
there's
split between-
1,000, and the subs, the affordable ones are $1,000. They're now going to throw out some numbers that are going to be shocking to anyone my age.
What are the non-affordable going for?
The non-affordables
I mean,
are,
just the market rate.
market. Well, they're market rate, but so 80 to 120. So we're like around 1,800 to 2,400.
For how long? For how big? Two
So
bedroom?
that would be like 650 square feet, and then our 2 beds are huge. They're almost 1,400 square feet. They're gorgeous. And these are really nice, like really nice. But I mean, tears in. I am kid you not. Thank you so much. We never thought we'd live in a place like this. So sorry. Anyway, there's more to this than just trying to make some money. There really is. Anyway. Sorry, it's just like so embarrassing. I'll do with that. I'm a builder.
There's a leak happening.
Exactly. The window open again, there's some sand blowing around. All right, anyway, that was ridiculous. Let's stop the tape. All right. So here we are. So building gets rented. Act 250, this is what we talked about at the press conference. Act 250, thank you so much to anybody who had anything to do with changing that, because that made a big, big difference. This building specifically was designed as a 10 unit. Well, I was only going to do 9 of them specifically to not have to go through Act 250, which my engineer was like, this $150,000 is going to take you a year. He always underestimates everything so that means that's 225, and it's going to take 18 months. And you can't ever justify adding 1 unit in a building with those kind of numbers, right? So, but the Act 47 enabled 24 units. Again, we're in a neighborhood development area. We're right in Virgins. And that changed that exemption from 9 units to 24 units. So we went ahead and applied for, so we're in the same predicament, like it's not going to work going to the bank. Prices have still gone up even from 2023, but the rental revolving loan fund with the VHFA became available, and we applied for that, and we're one of the awardees. And we after that award, we went and got permits for building number 2, which is 14 units, same property adjacent to the first building. And we're going to start that in March. We're just about done with all the permitting and the loan docs for that. So,
tell us more, what did the rental, I'm curious, as I understand it, the rental revolving loan fund
yes.
kind of writes down interest.
Yeah, good point, right.
So how's that?
Yes,
Tell us how writing down interest at 2 points
yes.
into your pro forma, how does that change the whole? scene?
Okay, that is a great question. I'm really glad you brought that up. So what determines how much rent we have to charge, right? It's paying the bank back. I mean, there's taxes, there's insurance, there's maintenance, but the big cost is debt service. So if we're going to the bank and getting a loan for the whole shooting match at 7%, that right there is specifically why we can't charge enough rent to make up for that, much less get it down into a range for that middle income. 2 ways to skin that cat: get a smaller loan, which required that grant. So we got the grant, we got the cost, how much we needed to borrow from the bank became $500,000 less than we had to. So that works. But the second one, which is the rental revolving loan fund program, is the interest rate comes down. So instead of 7% interest rate, we were able, so for Jens, backing up a little bit, part of what determines the rental revolving, and this is really Maura's thing, but you do better rate-wise with VHFA if you have more participation from employers and municipalities. Virgins kicked in money for our project, again, in a loan, right? So they didn't give me the money, I got to pay that back, but they kicked in money, and that did help us. I think that helped us with VHFA get a better rate. So in straight up numbers, 7%, 6.5% would be about right now with a conventional loan. And we're at 2% with the rental revolving loan fund.
Turn back.
It's a huge difference, huge difference. Ironically, if you could turn back time, we could have got a 3% rate 5-6 years ago. And we'd be probably not needing this program.
Elizabeth,
Thanks. I've just got a quick question. What would have happened to this little scheme? This plan,
Yeah.
if it hadn't been a loan and had instead been a reimbursement grant?
So a reimbursement grant, I think that, do you mean where we pay and get reimbursed for? Yeah, so that was the first program. So that was the CRRP. That was that through the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. That's exactly how that works. So we paid to build the building, and then we submit all our invoices and receipts, and then would get 20% back on that,
And
effectively reducing the cost of construction by 20%. Right, because we paid 100%, they give us 20% back.
But you have to have enough liquid to start off.
You do have to, yeah, so we have bank notes, as that goes, so. And then we would take that 20% back and put it right back into the building, so that all ended up. It's all in the building, but our total cost of construction was reduced by 20%, so that is the other way to skin the cat. For sure, but that requires a grant that no one gets back.
Right.
I gotta say, this program, from a sustainability standpoint, and Maura may not want me to talk about this.
Go ahead and talk about it.
Okay, all right, because this really is, and I might get things wrong here.
Don't look at her.
Okay, all right, she's good at that, all right. So, here's what I think is ingenious about this program. If the term is 10 years, right? So it's a 10-year, in 10 years it balloons, and then I'm on my own. Now what happens in 10 years? I need to refinance the outstanding debt, pay the VHFA back. At that point, rents should have gone up enough, so even if we're at the same interest rate as we are now, 6.5, 7. Rents should have gone up enough in 10 years that I can get it, and I have paid the debt down because I'm paying principal and interest to the VHFA. So I get a smaller loan, current rates, rent went up. Now the building should be self-sustaining. And this program gets the money back. So in theory, if it's funded for 10 years, it's perpetual. That is a zillion times better than a grant. I like a grant, right? Because it's like, hey, I got money, real money. I don't need bank debt. But as far as perpetuity and being able to do this program in the future, 10 years of funding, now it sustains itself.
Question.
Yes,
So it's a 10-year loan.
yes.
What would your bank loan have been? What would you have gone?
So the way the commercial bank loans work is it's essentially
It's a 10,
it's a 5.
and 30?
Well, it's a 5-year, it's amortized at 30 years.
30, but.
Yeah, but it's a 5-year term.
So, and this is just a straight 10-year.
This is 10 years, yeah.
So you got to pay more because it's a 10-year loan than a 5 and 30, but you'd have a bigger balloon with if it's a 5 and 30, you're paying like you had a 30-year loan, isn't it? Doesn't that mean that?
No, because it's still the interest. So the 10-year loan is still amortized over 30 years.
Oh, it's a 10 and
Yeah.
30. Okay.
Yeah, it's a 10-30.
Okay, it's a 10
Yeah,
and.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are
so
you-
None of us understood what
Okay,
just
but-
happened.
Some of your loans that you're paying is, it's a.
it's like a standard mortgage when you buy a house is 30 years.
Yeah,
And so it's amortized, meaning they figure out how much principal and what's your payment each month, that at the end of 30 years that it's paid back completely.
Yes.
So the longer that term is, the more interest you pay, because you've been paying interest for 40 years instead of 30 years, but the
Monthly
payment goes down.
Yeah.
So these are amortized over 30 years. So it's it's as if you had the loan for 30 years as far as paying the principal and interest. Payment is lower, longer period of time. So that's a good thing from my perspective, because I am trying to keep my monthly rents low enough, but still being able to pay this bank back. But then the balloon part is that's like, when do you got to pay the bank back? So in a 30-year loan I have on my house, I don't need to pay the bank back ever. As long as I make my payments, they get paid back over 30 years. With VHFA, I need to pay them back in 10 years, like the party's over in 10 years.
So even though.
so
when
you're
you
keeping
pay
it
10
low
and
for 10
30,
years, but
you-
then you have to pay the
it's
whole
paid
rest
as
of
if
it.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Paid it.
You got it.
30.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the end of 10 years.
It's the
there's still
30-year
the
rate for 10 years, and then you've got to
he's
pay
gotta
the rest.
pay it back.
Yeah, and I pay them back by getting a loan somewhere else, right? So that
Or
that
by
kind of
them.
be conventional. Was that
Or you. can-
maybe VSFA, right? Maybe, or
You
maybe
get
some
to
other
shop.
stores. I get, yeah, I am obligated to pay them back. How I do that is up to
Right.
me and what's available. But we have now paid that loan down. We have paid interest, but we're also paying principal so that we don't owe the full amount in 10 years because we paid a lot of that.
What kind of people? Tell us about,
Yes.
I mean, one of the questions, of course, is, well, this is a cool program, but how's it changing the demographic from your seniors who are selling somewhere else?
Yes.
Who's buying these units? Or who's-
So these are, I would say their average age in there's probably about 30. And so we have people in their 20s and early 30s. We're back to, it's like a fun place to be. We have balconies on all of them, everyone's hanging out. And you can, high spirited. So I think we have one person that works sort of remotely, and there's like, if you come tonight, you will find a place to park, because I do have enough parking. If you go right now, the parking lot is empty, there's the one car there. So it's like everybody's out of there, everybody's in the community, everybody's working. It's like exactly, I think, what Virgins wanted. It's exactly what the employers that we just heard, that is, so we had to do surveys with the biggest employers in Addison County and Virgins to get that loan. And it was super consistent, like we have open jobs that we can't fill. And no one can find a place to live, like they will, they have it, it's awesome, you're hired. At the end of the weekend, they're like, I'm not gonna move, I can't find any place to live. So these are those people, these are 20s, 30s, out there working at area employers, and Virgins has been like, they were very excited about getting the first building, they're like, even more, so again, they put money in for the second building.
You said there were 24 units?
Yeah, the 24 total now, there'll be
So
24
just
total
nine.
between building 1 and building 2.
So those people that are renting,
Yes.
they're working people and they're
Yeah.
not getting any subsidy from
They're
anywhere.
unsubsidized, right? They are, so that's that missing middle, right? They make too much money to get subsidies. There's 2 big affordable buildings, buildings at the end of the same, I'm on Armory Lane in Virginia. There's I think 40, there's 25 senior and a 25 affordable, and the senior is even affordable at the end of the road. Our renters, even if there was an opening, which there's not, there's a 2-year waiting list on those. But if there was, they made too much money to qualify for that, so they cannot rent in those.
Sort of like what occupations they are by any chance, just by way.
Yeah, good one. So we have a college, like an associate professor, Middlebury College. We have EMT, because he comes with the ambulance, and the first time we did that, I was freaked out. That's like, yeah, it's like, what the heck up, So now you came in to get lunch. We have an analyst, whatever that means. What else? That kind, I don't know everybody's job. I wish my son was here. He handles all that, so he does know all that. But yeah, those kind of jobs, those sort of like mid-level jobs.
Okay. Members of the committee, any questions of this wonderful man?
Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you're nice, Ross,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, right.
It was great. That was really great information. This is all happening in Virginia.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys.
You've been
Everybody.
Good, I have a question for you.
Sure.
For her.
Oh, for Laurel. Okay, yeah.
If we give them a kickback,
Reminds too.
so it.
They don't
for
do that, so
everybody
they
else-
never want.
For everybody else, it's 3%, but for you. it was- My question for you, going right from this testimony is, okay, so actually 2 questions, but one is, so when you get a grant from the state, like, let's say that you've asked for 15 million, or the governor's asking for 15. Is that the money that's buying down the interest rate?
Mhm.
And it's not, in other words, you're not using the 15 million to lend directly. You're not using up the 15 million to lend. You're using up the 15 million to supplement your other sources of capital that you get on the capital market at 7% to buy down the 7% to 2%.
It's an excellent question, and I'm not prepared to speak to it today, but we've had this debate internally back and forth, and it actually is a wash either way we structure it.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so my CFO, I'd be happy to bring here and can explain it, but just trust me that either way we structure it, whether we're actually, and it's only 10 million that we previously got, so the
Yeah.
10 million, whether we give that out as the cash award, or if we borrow the money and then use the 10 million to buy down the rates, it becomes a bit of a wash. That is an open question for this next 15 million, is that have rates changed to a point that we might do things differently.
Was 10 million last year's approach,
No, it was the year before that.
the year before? And was there any before that, or is the
No,
program?
that was the first year of the program.
Okay, so the first year of the program was 10 million. Is that gone?
Oh, yeah, in one board meeting. In 3 hours, we spent 10 million, and we didn't fund all the projects. I hate to say this in front of Laura Lee, but we didn't fund any projects in the Northeast Kingdom despite having applications. And that's because they weren't quite ready. So we actually have another program where we're looking at some projects that when you get that money, it comes with some technical assistance, and we're trying to make sure that we can bring some other projects along. But I think one thing that we're probably confusing you with, but when you only give us an hour, this is what we do a little bit, is that we are talking about two different programs here. And so we have bought back and forth. So we did have 24 million for homeownership and 10 million for rental. And so what I find compelling about some of the testimony you heard is that when I hear Peter talk about how he has long been a for sale housing developer and is committed, as I think we saw, to serving a certain segment of the population because he wants to support the workforce of his community and no longer can build homes and serve that part of the workforce, he had to switch to rental. And so I know that when the program first was created, there was some question about like, really, you gotta go up to 150% of median income? That feels a little high for a rental program, but it's like, no, that is who needs this. And so I will be very brief in my remarks because I am happy to come back and answer questions about the programs, but these two programs, both the homeownership and the rental, came about from employers. It was the Vermont Chamber and it was employers who were talking about what was needed. And you can see here, Middlebury College, we've heard about, they took a leadership role in supporting this. UVM Medical Center went on their own and started building their own housing for their workforce because they were so desperate to have places. We have been promoting a community-based housing model through these programs where the employer is not the owner and landlord and controller of it all, but these are homes that, as Peter explained, he needed to work with area employers and find out what wages they were paying and where the need was and make sure that the rents charged were going to align with what was needed locally. But it's not employer-based housing. I think you all know about the incomes that middle-income households, the kind of professions middle-income households earn. And so both these homeownership and rental programs do go up to 150% of median. So you can see some numbers here, but it doesn't mean that we max out the rents to the highest income. So here, I'm going to switch and just talk about the rental program, then talk about homeownership. And for the rental program, a developer gets to choose which of two paths they want to take. We know that the government affordable programs typically cap out at 60% of median income. So someone earning, well, what was my math here? Someone earning, low 50,000s in a lot of parts of Vermont. So we set the rental program to be just above that, meaning you don't qualify for a government subsidized apartment, but just above that. And so, but the more affordable band will be people who are earning between 65 and 80% of median. And we set the rent so that they are affordable to people earning up to that 80% of median. Or you can do a slightly higher income level if that's what your employer survey shows needed. And you can set rents closer to 120% of median. You can see the rents here. There's a difference. While the program allows households living there to earn up to 150% of median, we don't set the rents at that max. We make them be below that because we want to make sure that we are doing our best to have the rental housing we're creating be affordable. This slide has too many words, but you can read it tonight when you need to go to sleep. And you can see here the details. Both these programs have some similarities, whether it's rental or homeownership. We're only going to give developers like Peter and others 35% of what they need, not giving them everything what they need. Why? Well, if they're selling a home, they're going to get money. Someone's buying that home, so they're going to get that. Or as Peter spoke about, they're going to have a loan. A developer of a rental housing is going to have a traditional bank loan. This is designed, when we created the program, we started by hearing from employers about the need. Then we went to housing developers and builders and said, what's the problem? And developers told us it's the interest rates, it's the high costs, it's, you know, how expensive it is. Then we went to the banks and we said, why can't you meet the needs? Because remember my testimony from January said, VHFA is only here to fill market gaps. We have great community lenders. I don't need to recreate what People's United does or M&T or whatever. I'm here to do something different. And so we talked to the banks about what do they need. They needed us to be a subordinate lender, meaning we're just lending on up to the 35%. We're not the first ones to be paid back if this all goes south. This is riskier lending, but we can offer lower interest rates because y'all have appropriated the money. So we can offer lower rates and pass that on to the builder, and the builder passes that on to lower rents. Now, the builder developers can choose. They could do just a construction loan and pay it off. They could do the kind of 10-year loan that you just heard about. They could do a 30-year loan. Any way you look at it, those
Only for 35%.
correct. But it could be a 30-year loan. Not everyone wants to do a 30-year loan because of the economics of the project.
But you do 10 and 30.
Yep. Oh, and we do anything. If someone wants a 17-year loan, I mean, we can do anything. They're mostly going to be amortized over those 30 years, as was discussed. But we do that. I do want to make one correction is that whenever the loan gets paid back, if it's a 10-year loan, I hope Peter noticed this in the legal documents, there is a requirement that there's a tail at the end of that loan where the rents still have to be held affordable for another 3 years. There's like a minimum there that we require. And I put in orange that the rents are capped at 3% annually, because you may remember last time I was in here, I actually asked you all if we could change that, and you supported that in the BA.
BAA.
Yes.
That tail end is on all the units,
Rental
not just
housing.
the,
On the, no, because there are some market rate units in here. Anyone that got the benefit that has this loan.
okay.
Yeah. So it's essentially, if I'm subsidizing something, I want something for it.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's an orange because that's changing, that 3% might be a different number that VHFA would approve. But Peter spoke about how, conventional rates, maybe 7% that you can get from a bank. Through this program, maybe we could offer 3 or 4%. But if you get money from a municipality, like Virgin's offered, or an employer wants to chip in money, then we can lower that interest rate even further. And with the $10 million the legislature gave us, there was $21 million that we got from, or these projects got from municipalities or employers. And so it's a great leveraging tool. And you can see the 9 communities where we put these rental apartments. And these are all in development now. I don't have pictures of people living in these buildings because this just all happened in the past year. They got awarded at our June board meeting. And so they are in various levels of development.
Laura, help me out. I'm just having a little trouble.
Mhm.
So just comment on this. I'm having a little trouble understanding how giving somebody a 5% reduction in their financing costs for a third of their project
Mhm.
is gonna end up causing rents to be substantially below market.
Mhm. Because also they got some money from the municipality or the employer, so that goes a little farther. And, that is, that's why these rents are not super cheap. I mean, when we talk about what we're buying, we're only asking for a little discount on the rents because we're not giving them that much. And that actually, you can't really compare this to the deeply subsidized affordable government housing where you give them 100% of what they need. And so rents have to be really cheap. I mean, market rate rents, these rents could be $2,000 a month. That may be below what the market is, but it's not affordable to someone on disability income. You know, it's not as deeply subsidized as many people need. So from the rental program, this revolving loan fund, we also created a homeownership development program. And this is because there's not a lot of homeownership development happening. Peter spoke to that, why that is, costs are too high. But also I want to point out that the for sale homes we have in the state aren't meeting the state's needs. This little graphic is from the needs assessment that I'm sure you all read and already saw. And what this is showing is that 83% of Vermont's households are not the traditional old-timey traditional nuclear families of large families like used to be in Vermont. So if you've ever looked at a chart of when Vermont built most of its homes, a lot of them were built before the 1940s and definitely before the 1970s when our household sizes were larger and we had larger families all living together. But that has changed. Now we have a lot more singles and smaller households. So while most of our households are singles living alone or couples with no kids, or single parent families and all that, 60% of our homes have 3 or more bedrooms. So we have a mismatch. We have big homes and small households. So what do we need? We need to bring on the market more small, modest homes. So the homes we funded with the 24 million of this program were on average 1,300 square feet, very modest homes. What we paid for, this is not the same kind of subsidized loan that the rental program is. This is something different. What we paid for in the homeownership program is to pay for the gap between how much it costs to build a home and how much it's going to appraise for, right on day one. This is a crazy economic concept, but it may cost $600,000 to build a home. And before anyone moves in and mucks up those walls or floors, it's only going to appraise for $500,000. And that's because you're speaking to the cost of construction is so high and the values don't support it. You are not going to find a lender who's going to lend above appraised value. That means it's an unsecured loan. It's not good lending, doesn't happen. So we need an appropriation to cover that value gap between what it costs to build and what it's going to appraise for. But if a developer has not yet used up their 35% that we say we'll give them, they can also use some of that money to cover an affordability gap, meaning the home was going to be 500,000. Now it's only 400,000 and it's more affordable. And whatever goes into that affordability gap that in my model here is 100 grand, that stays with the home. So if you bought the home and it was 100 grand cheaper than it should have been, that's great. You live there as long as you want. Someday when you move and I go to buy the home, my home that same home is going to be 100 grand cheaper than what it would have been. So it stays there. It is a permanent subsidy.
So the homeowner who buys one of these homes has some sort of enforceable running with the land legal document that means when they sell it, whatever the free market value is, the fair market value is, they then have to subtract 100,000 from the price.
They do promise to sell the home for the appraised value whenever that day
For
comes.
the appraised value.
Because, well, so they're selling it for the appraised value, and what they get is that appraised value minus whatever the affordability subsidy was. So people won't be able to jack up the price and go from there, but they say, yep, I'm gonna sell it for the appraised value whenever that day comes. And I know it's going to be 100 grand less or 50 grand less or whatever it
Is
is.
appraised value the same as market value?
No.
No,
Oh,
Assessment is different.
assessment's different, but an appraisal,
Appraised value, yes.
Yeah.
an appraisal should be the current market value.
I mean, unless your market is wildly out of whack and you're getting $100,000 over asking price tag.
And that's what they can't do. These people can't take 100 grand over. They're gonna
That's
sell
what
it
keeps it affordable.
for the, they have to get an appraisal and it'll be an amount less than that.
And so that subsidy
Mhm.
never runs back through you. It just runs directly from the seller to the next buyer.
Correct.
Who, and is that buyer, it runs with the house, so that buyer has the same deal.
Yes, and so 100 years from now, is 100 grand worth it? I
Yeah, it
mean,
won't be
you-
worth very much.
but if we had 100 years of a home that was in a community and people were living in and, you know, they were decorating for Halloween, the way Peter was talking about, I'm okay with that. We were able to award homes in 20 different communities, you can see here. And with that, there was 125 homes. This is how much the subsidy was. There's a requirement in here that we, at least a third of these homes be shared equity homes. We far exceeded that, and more than half the homes are shared equity. And so these are a few of the people who have been in these homes. This program was a year older than the rental program. And so some of these homes have sold and we have people living in these.
What was the award? What was the budgetary award? What's the budgetary history of this program?
We got, I have to get my years right. In 2023, we were given $9 million for the homeownership program. And then came back and in budget adjustment, because demand was so high for the homeownership, you all gave us an extra 15 million, which is why I refer to it as a $24 million program.
That was
And that was
2023.
FY 23, and then in FY 20. No, I mean, you're off. There was FY 22, and in FY 23, you gave us the 10 million for the rental program. Because last year in FY 24. You didn't give us anything. I'm still a year off. I think it's
Don't
23 and 24, 22 and 23. I'm sorry. I can stop sharing and I'll look that up while I'm talking. But the programs were well oversubscribed. Developers are asking us all the time, what if there could be more of it, which is why we're coming back to you all and asking for more money. So again, just as a reminder, in your bill, I believe, there's 15 million for the rental program, 15 million for the homeownership program, combined 30. This also, those are the amounts that the governor included in his budget. And so we're hoping for support from the state. It was 2022, FY 22, when the homeownership program was funded, meaning it would have been FY 23 when the rental program was funded.
So the home ownership was in 2022 was 24 million.
Mhm.
And then 2023, what was it?
There was 10 million for the rental program, but each program have only been.
No, but 24 million was for, I'm just asking homeowners.
Just homeownership.
But 2023, was there anything for home ownership?
No.
No appropriation.
No.
And 2024?
Nothing for homeownership. It only was funded the 1 year. It was funded in 2 slogs, the
Yeah.
original budget and the BAA, but it was all the same
But
fiscal
the
year.
2023, 24 million was, was it not funded because it took 3 years to
But for in-
disperse it?
Yes, we hadn't awarded it in 23, so I didn't want to come back and ask for more money before I spent it. And then, last year we did ask, for money, but, it was not funded.
Okay,
And so,
but you asked.
yes, we were in the waterfall provision last year that if there had been money, there was money for both of these programs in the waterfall, but there was not enough, money to get to
The
us.
waterfall was basically, if we have a surplus, here's how we'll distribute it. A waterfall.
So before Ashley had said it's 40 something, $46 million.
So our language or draft 2.1 of our bill, no other edits that we've discussed, is the 46,262,600.
Which includes the 15 and 15.
Okay.
Not that that's what we're necessarily in.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to point out that not only has the rental program leveraged the municipal and employer funding, but the homeownership program also, as I said, 55% of these units are shared equity homes. And I believe your bill has a request for homeownership counseling and assistance. You know, people who go through the shared equity program are getting that kind of counseling and assistance. That is absolutely something that VHFA has long championed. We support the homeownership centers every year in helping them get some organizational support to stay open. And the success and strong counseling that is possible in Vermont because of the homeownership centers has really served people to succeed in their homeownership. So I was excited to see the committee support that.
Questions? Any further questions? She's here.
Daniel will be
I guess
back.
I would just ask Maura if you can, would you make a case for one over another, or what, you know, when we have to make the case to the whole approach, is there anything left that you want to make sure?
I wouldn't make case for one over the other exactly because of what Peter was talking about, which is when we're trying to serve a certain part of the market, it changes who can afford that. What I liked in the waterfall, I'll say this, last year, was that it had an amount and did not differentiate the amount between rental and homeownership. And there's something about that I liked, which meant I could reopen both programs. I could see what the competition looked like and how oversubscribed it was. And if you gave us 30 million for these two programs, then we could flex and respond to make sure we were going with the most impressive. And if it meant one more rental development or one more homeownership development, that does allow us to be responsive. So 30 million for the two programs, but I wouldn't say pick one program over the other, but that is a way of kind of managing the need a bit, would be that kind of flexibility.
But that's not what showed up in the governor's budget. You didn't.
Correct. He went with 15 and 15.
Okay.
But if there was 30 for the two programs,
I believe in flexibility personally. But we'll see.
I have to say that it's been a lot to stand up two new programs. If my team were here, they're a little fried right now. So we really would like to be able to reopen both programs because the demand and the types of projects we're doing with each of them, they each have benefits. I'm sorry, but I have 3 kids, so I'm not going to pick a favorite one, but like they each have different strengths. They each have different personalities. You're doing different things. You're bringing in employer money. Oh, you're actually building homeownership, which doesn't happen. So you can't pick one over the other. And you need to have a substantial amount of money, I'm sorry to say, in order to make these work. I mean, these loans we're making are $2 million at a pop. And so the money adds up quick because those costs are so high.
Well, thank you very much to you and both of you for coming. This has been a very interesting time for all of us. We've learned a lot. Thank you. And we have the language on the off-site housing person.
Yes, and that's been
We
sent
have-
to you and Cameron.
It's been sent to Cameron. Great.
So Garrett's still in here.
He's not, I don't know when you last got it. I saw an email from him at 8:44 this morning where he was tweaking the language, so,
They want to send us.
okay. So it was honestly just, clarify, it was housekeeping, but I may, in the next hour, send you different language that was cleaned up.
Okay, I'll just make sure I forward that to Cameron.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot to ask my other question.
Go ahead, please do.
Just that something just came over the transom. It was a consideration of some type of revolving loan fund for tenants to be able to buy out a home a multi-unit dwelling that they live in. And I was just curious what your thoughts were about, I know it would be setting up a new program, but
Yeah.
probably like the mobile home are doing something similar. And since you're in financing, I just figured now would be a good time to ask.
Yeah, and what you really want to ask is the for-profit landlord or developer, because with the government programs, I don't think you'd want to do that because you've put the public subsidy in. And now if someone gets to buy that, especially if they got to buy it at an affordable price, you've now committed that public subsidy to that resident at that time. So that makes it complicated. You wouldn't have perpetual affordability and all that because that.
Make that into the requirement?
And, well, there would be pros and cons of that. I mean, you'd lose the unit being perpetually affordable. Now, tax credit housing does have that provision by the IRS statute. All the tax credit housing that we do, we have to allow for developers to come in and choose eventual tenant ownership if they wanted to. That's a decision a developer would make at the beginning. It gets complicated in other states. I'll say it has not been successfully done because again, you've had public subsidy go in and then it's whoever happens to live in the unit after 30 years of it being affordable housing, then gets the golden ticket to be able to buy it. There's a lot of people who they may have only lived in that apartment for a year. And at that moment, they may not be in a position to buy, or the quality of the building may not be what they want. So it's not a model that in practice has been widely done. And I think, so you'd want to look at the unsubsidized market. And again, I think a lot of builders went into building their buildings with a certain assumption about what they were even going to do 10, 30 years from now with that property. And so whether they'd want to sell it, I don't know.
Kim?
So didn't you fund Windermere and Colchester for the mobile home park?
Should really know that answer. And I'm nervous that I don't.
So
I can tell you when I get back to my office.
okay, it's either VHFA or
VHCB?
right, no,
No?
VHI.
Oh, HFI.
HFI.
Yep, that's the program of the State Housing Authority, Housing Foundation, Inc.
But you,
I don't know,
okay,
but I have really smart people who do. And I'm
Okay.
sure I have a great answer for whatever the follow-up is about
Okay,
that. I'm
okay.
sorry. 50 years of history and it happened before I was in this role. I can tell you we didn't finance it in the last 6 years.
no,
Nope, it's an oldie but a goodie.
Yep.
I know it well. I don't know if we had a role in it. We have,
and that's for nonprofit.
the HFI is a nonprofit, and if they own it and manage it and all that. So we likely weren't the financer because the State Housing Authority 22 years ago issued some bonds the way we do. They don't do this typically, but 20 plus years ago, they issued some bonds and they had a bunch of mobile home parks, manufactured home communities
Mhm.
that they funded with those bonds. So that may be what this is.
Yeah, they haven't done it in over 12 years because they can't come up with that amount of money so quickly with the 6242, because you only have a certain amount of time
Mhm.
to get that money.
I don't know.
Any other questions? Laura, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank
Have a
you.
great weekend. Members of the committee, I just want to tell you, first of all, thank you for your attention and devotion to this. And really great. Feel very blessed by this group. You should look on Monday or some Monday night, look at the posted at least initial posting for the week, but it's what for us on Tuesday, February 25th, we have the floor at 10 a.m. So that's the first thing that's gonna happen. So we'll come back floor and then there's caucuses and lunch. So we'll start in the afternoon. Okay?
Deal.
So when we see each other on Monday, by then, on Tuesday, you'll have the.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
So much. I want to go to Virginia.
Okay.
I was wondering when.
Are we-
Isn't that right?